Hello, good afternoon, welcome back. So, good afternoon all of you. Welcome to Dr. Dinesh Pharma and welcome to our daily live sessions on the topic-wise insights of MDR 2017 for UPSC Drugs Inspector Medical Devices examination. Upcoming UPSC Drugs Inspector Medical Device examination, as you all know. Yes, we are going with a daily series of MDR 2017 topic-wise insights of MDR 2017 in our channel, in our YouTube channel regularly. So we shall start it. So this is before starting, I would like to insist all of you. So whoever have not followed our series so far, okay, we have discussed about, we are discussing in detail or in brief about the various rules. Okay, what are various contents and the topic-wise insights of MDR 2017 in a brief manner, so that many of the participants are asking for the regular series. So whoever have not subscribed or whoever have not followed our channel so far, yes, please do subscribe and follow our channel for the regular insights. Okay. So, getting back into the fifth day, day 5 insights. Okay, so till our previous class, till day 4, we have gone through chapter 1 and we have gone through in chapter 1. So, we all have discussed that this MDR 2017, it includes a total of 12 chapters with 97 rules, 8 schedules and 40 forms. Okay. So all these things, this is a framework, and out of this framework we have completed this chapter 1 till yesterday in detail. So there were so many, it seems as simple as that, but it is not as simple as that, with examples and all we have gone through. And thank you for all of them who are regularly following our channel and giving us more inputs regarding this. Okay, so we will get into the day 5 insights. Yeah, getting into the day 5 insights, today we have chapter 2, okay, that covers rules 4 to 7, chapter 1 was covering, yeah, here it is chapter 2, covering rules 4 to 7, chapter 1 was about rules 1 to 3 and chapter 2 is about rules 4 to 7. So what does these rules 4 to 7 cover? We will just go through, yes. Okay, very, very important. This chapter 2 is very simple. Yes, of course, chapter 2 is very simple, but it is very important, very crucial. Okay, wherever we are dealing with, whatever the chapter we are dealing with, even the chapter 1, chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on until 12. Okay, whatever the chapter we are dealing with is again takes the basis of this chapter 2. Okay, takes the basis of chapter 2. Why is it taking the basis of chapter 2 again? Okay, why? What is the basis? What is the exact basis of chapter 2? Okay, because chapter 2 includes the risk-based classification, as we have discussed earlier. Okay, as we usually discuss about. So wherever we are discussing about any definitions, or like when we discuss about body orifice, or when we discuss about anything like a clinical investigation or investigational plan, or whatever it is, everywhere this classification of medical devices, the risk-based classification of medical devices comes into picture. Wherever, whatever the chapter or whatever the topic it is involved, everywhere the risk-based classification is involved. Okay, that risk-based classification is again discussed in the chapter number 2. Okay, so in chapter 2 we have the first rule, that is rule 4. Rule 4 is nothing but it is about the classification. Rule 4 covers nothing but the classification. So what is classification? How are medical devices classified? Okay, as we all have discussed earlier, based on the body orifice, they are classified into invasive and non-invasive devices, and based on the notification whether they are registered. So classification does not exactly mean a particular type of classification. Wherever the classification of a medical device is not based only on a single purpose or not based only on a single basis. It has so many parameters, and out of these parameters, yes, we have seen that based on whether it is at its route of administration or based on its method of administration, it was classified as invasive and non-invasive devices, and based on the notification or based on the requirement of registration or not, again these medical devices were classified as notified medical devices and non-notified medical devices. And coming to the risk they purpose, okay, based on the, and this classification which is mentioned in rule 4 is about, yes, please remember, classification does not mean a single basis of classification. Here in rule 4, the classification of medical devices in rule 4, yeah, so classification of medical devices in rule 4 is based on the risk it shows. Okay, based on the risk it proposes to be, based on the proposed risk or based on the risk it purposes to be a particular medical device, what kind of a risk it proposes. So the classification is further based on the risk it shows, the type of medical device and the risk it shows. Okay, so this is the classification of medical devices. So we will go through the basis of the classification of medical devices. Okay, based on the risk, how are medical devices classified again? Okay, this is not one and the same again for each and every medical device. So we will see what are the various variants. Okay, so in this the classification of medical devices based on risk. Okay, here I will mention classification, that is the risk based classification. I will mention separately. In this what it is mentioned? It is mentioned that the first rule according to 4.1, okay, the subclause of 4.1. The subclause 4.1 deals with the medical devices other than in vitro diagnostic medical devices. See here again the classification, the basis of classification. The classification may be one and the same, but the basis of classification is not the same. For in vitro medical devices, yes. So we can always see everywhere there is a differentiation between an IVD and an MD. Okay, though IVDs are nothing but the in vitro medical devices. IVD is nothing but an in vitro medical devices. Though IVDs are classified into medical devices, okay, everywhere there are exemptional rules. Okay, the rules and the clauses and the basis of parameters is everything. It is different. It is slightly different for an IVD as compared to the other MDs. Okay, so please make sure that there are certain limitations and certain differences between MDs and IVDs to the context of MDs and IVDs wherever it is referred. So whenever a question or appears like a medical device, please make sure that it is mentioned, whether it is mentioned an IVD, about an IVD. So unless it is mentioned, if it is specially mentioned about an in vitro medical device, medical diagnostic device, okay, in vitro diagnostic medical device, if it is specially mentioned, consider it separate, or if it is not mentioned, yes, it is classified under MDs. Okay, unless mentioned. Please make a note of this also. Okay, so the classification of medical devices, other than IVDs. Other than IVDs, what is it based on? Again, okay, we have discussed that it is based on the risk. It is nothing but a risk-based classification. But this risk-based classification, how is this risk-based classification made again? Okay, how is this risk-based classification made again? Also forms an important part of this rule. Okay, so this is based on the parameters, on the basis of the parameters specified under the part 1 of the first schedule. It is given on the basis of the parameters specified on the basis of parameters specified in the part 1 of the first schedule. So again, we need to jump to the first schedule, right? So we have discussed that how many schedules are there in the MDR 2017. Okay, MDR 2017 covers a total of 8 schedules. MDR 2017, it covers a total of 8 schedules, and out of that, the first schedule itself, it describes the parameters. It describes all the parameters which are necessary for this classification. What does these parameters do? These parameters are necessary for the classification of these medical devices. Okay, so what are these parameters based on? Okay, we will discuss about these parameters in detail in first schedule actually. Okay, these parameters, there are a lot, many number of parameters again, and these parameters again we will discuss while we discuss the schedules, this first schedule, but we will just go through the basis of parameters. So on what parameters, on what basis, on what principles is this risk-based classification made? At least we should have an idea, right? Though we are not going to dig deep, okay, because we can't cover all the content at one place. It would be confusing in a short span of time if I am covering you so many things, if I am covering, and it will be a little kind of confusion. No, it is something like a blah blah. It looks like that. Okay, so not like that. So we will just mention about the parameters, the necessary parameters for the risk-based classification. Okay, so these medical devices other than IVDs, they can be classified further. They can be classified further based on what principles? Based on what principles? And these principles are specified in part 1 of first schedule. Okay, so what are the principles? The principles that they have to be made on the intended purpose of the device is the first principle. Okay, the risk-based classification is based on, it takes into consideration of the intended purpose of the device. Okay, it is based upon the intended purpose of the device and whether it is intended to be used. So we discussed about the intended purpose of the device. What is the intended purpose of the device? Yes, it was there in detail in the yesterday's session. Please go through whoever haven't followed. Okay. So the intended purpose of the device and whether it is intended to be used in combination with another device or not. Okay, very important again, very important. Whether this particular device is being used in combination with other device or it is used singly. Okay, whether it is used singly. So why is this important? Yes, because if the device is used singly, if the device is used in combination with, if it is used alone, no, there is no issue. Okay, but if it is used in combination with some other device, what happens? So the classification rules, whatever the rules of classification here, whatever we are following, all the rules of classification will apply separately to each of the devices. Okay, please note, it is very important. The classification rules will apply separately to each of the device again. It is not, the rules are not common to all the devices, even when they are used in combination. If it is used in a combination, we usually assume that, yeah, rules are also similar to the combination. No, if they are used in combination, the rules apply separately to each of the device based on the type of device used, type of intention used, type of its intended use. Okay, again one more important aspect. Yeah, we are always confused. Always, this is the most confusing thing, confusing element in the risk-based classification, that the softwares. Okay, the softwares which drives a device. Okay, the software which drives a device. So whatever the devices we know, many medical devices are, they usually work on the basis of certain softwares. Yeah, many of the medical devices, they work or they function on the basis of certain softwares. Okay, whatever it might be, like MRI, not the very basic medical devices, but other medical devices like CT scan or an ultrasound scanning equipment or some ventilators or something like that. Whatever may be the other kinds of devices, they are based on the softwares. They work with the help of certain softwares. Okay, so these softwares, so we are always under confusion whether how to classify this software. Okay, whether this software is under medical devices or not, is under MDR 2017 or not, because nowhere it can be seen. Okay, yes, but these softwares also, according to the part 1 of first schedule, what is it mentioned? The softwares which are associated to the medical devices also, whatever the software that are associated with the use of medical devices also come under the rules of MDR 2017. They also come under the rules of MDR 2017. They are deemed to be a part of MDR 2017, especially with relation to the medical devices. Yeah, please remember what are considered intended purpose and when it is used in a whether it is a combination device or not, and the softwares. Okay. Yeah. Yes. And one more important point is that, okay, nowhere it is seen in this. Okay, it is all related to the principles of the risk-based classification. Okay, and one more important point, if the medication or if the medical device, not the medication, if the device is not intended to be used solely in a specific part of the body, okay, if it is a generalized device, okay, if there is no mention or if there is no label claim that this particular device has to be used in a particular or a specified part of the body, then it has to be considered. It has to be considered and classified on the basis of its most critical specified use. Okay, it has to be classified based on its most critical specified use. That means if we are going for any certain devices like an implant. Okay, let's take the example of an implant. If we are designing or we are about to classify an implant. Okay, if the classification is based on an implant. Okay, and there is no specific mention that in the label claim, there is no specific mention about this implant, whether it is a cochlear implant or whether it is a nasal implant, whether it is an ocular implant or whether it is a gastric implant or whatever it is, whatever the type of implant is not mentioned clearly in the label claim. Then what do we need to do? Then this risk-based classification or then this classification will be based on its most critical specified use. Okay, it will be based on the most critical use. Out of so many uses, in which area or which is its most critical use, that will be taken as the basis for classification. Okay, that is important here. Okay, because for certain generalized devices, yes, this usually happens. Okay, and also the one more important thing is if there are several rules that are applied to the medical devices. Okay, if to a particular medical device, especially when we were talking about yes, someone has this question. Actually, most of you might be having this question. Okay, when it comes to a particular device like a thermometer. Okay, like we take certain generalized devices like thermometers or sphygmomanometers or pulse oximeters or certain the generalized devices or a surgical equipment. Okay, or such type of devices, we usually get into a confusion. Okay, because several rules apply to the same device, to the same surgical device. It may come and it may fall under the category of a invasive device. It may fall under the category of a notified or a non-notified device. Okay, based on that, it may be under an active medical device. It may be under an active diagnostic medical device. So there may be several rules which may be applied based on the type of device. Based on the type of device, there may be several rules may apply according to its intended use. Several rules may apply to a particular device. Then what rules has to be taken into consideration is the major question. For classification, which rules has to be taken into consideration? What are the rules? So we can't take multiple rules into consideration and then fit the classification, right? So then what we need to do? Okay, so then the classification will be based on the strictest rule. Okay, then the classification will be based on the strictest of the rules. Out of so many rules, which rule is the most strictest one? Okay, that rule will be taken for the classification, for further classification of the medical device. Okay, so these are the general principles, not general principles as mentioned, the principles as mentioned in the first part of Schedule 1. Okay, the part 1 of Schedule 1, which is necessary for the risk-based classification of medical devices. Other than IVDs. IVDs. Okay, IVDs, in vitro diagnostic devices. Yeah. So this is based on considering all these principles, Considering all these factors, considering all these principles, yes, medical devices are usually classified into the most important segment of MDR 2017. This is the most important segment of MDR 2017 and their examples too. And their examples even very important. Okay, because in whichever the part we are dealing with in MDR 2017, this falls under an important criteria. Okay, so what is the risk-based classification here? The risk-based classification is like class A, B, C and D according to CDSCO. According to the CDSCO MDR 2017, CDSCO has classified based on all the parameters and all the principles we have discussed so far. CDSCO has classified the devices into 4 classes, that is class A, B, C and D. Class A, which seems to be a low risk, class B, low to moderate risk, class C, which is showing a moderate to high risk, and class D will be of high risk, will show a high risk one, high risk classification. Very important. Again, class A is nothing but the low risk medical device, and class B low to moderate risk medical device, class C is moderate to high risk medical device, and class D deals with the high risk medical devices. Okay, so and we will see certain examples for this. These are very important. Okay, the question may not be directly about class B medical device defines to be. It is not always possible, not always probable. Yes, there are certain other probabilities also like okay, so this low risk, what do a low risk medical device mean? What do a low risk medical device mean? Yes, the low risk medical device, as the name indicates, yes, it proposes very low risk. It proposes low risk in its usage. In its usage or in its intended use. The usage is nothing but the generalized usage. The low risk in its intended use. Okay. So, what are the medical devices that fall under class A? Nothing but the absorbent cotton wools. Yes, surgical dressings, swabs. Okay, the surgicals, all the surgical dressings. Okay, cotton wools and these bandages, swabs. Okay, all these things, they come under class A, that is the low risk medical devices, and class B being low to moderate risk. Okay, so the devices which propose a low risk to moderate risk according to the principles we have discussed so far, not only on intended use, according to the principles we have discussed so far. Okay, so what are they? Just now we have discussed about the thermometer. Okay, thermometers and just now BP monitoring devices, disinfectants. We just discussed about this. Right, so on what basis the classification should be made for this kind of devices? Okay, for this kind of devices like the thermometers, the BP monitors, okay, the digital BP monitors and the disinfectants, etc. They come under low to moderate risk, that is class B medical devices. And coming to the class C medical devices, class C, proposing a moderate to high risk. So what all fall under class C medical devices? Yes, the implants. Okay, the implants, catheters. Okay, the implants and catheters, not only the hemodialysis catheters and also, okay, not only the hemodialysis catheters, various, the central venous catheters, okay, the central venous catheters, the pacemakers, okay, the pacemakers, all these, they contribute a moderate to high risk. Okay, the hemodialysis equipment and the implants. Just now we have discussed about the implants, IUDs. Also, they propose a moderate to high risk. They come under the category of moderate to high risk. Okay. And next is about the high risk medical devices. That is comes under class D. Okay. Class D medical device. What is the class D medical device? It is nothing but which proposes a very high risk in the risk-based classification in their intended use mostly. Okay. So what it is here? Angiogram. So whatever the angiogram guide wires, because if there is any small element, so please we need to remember this. If there is any very small element even related to it which does not suit the classification, yes, it definitely proposes a high risk. This high risk may also even cost a life. Okay, this risk-based Why is this risk-based classification given to the medical devices? So based on this risk-based classification only, the licensing will be done. Okay, the licensing, the manufacture, the manufacturing provisions, the licensing, whether it is a loan license or whatever, and its clinical investigations, very importantly, the clinical investigations, and all these are again based on this risk-based classification. Okay, the licensing part, the licensing procedures, the manufacturing procedures, and the sale import procedures, these are all not one and the same for all the classes of medical devices. It is again the licensing by the central licensing or the state licensing authorities. Okay, the licensing by the licensing authorities and the testing procedures, clinical investigations by the clinical device testing, this medical device testing laboratories. All this is again based on this risk-based classification. Okay, these high-risk medical devices are nothing but which propose a very high risk in their, even in their, so any difference in their manufacturing or license or sale may even cause, it may be like sometimes life-threatening also. Okay, so that is why they are classified under high-risk medical devices like angiogram guide wires and heart valves, pacemakers, etc. All these things they are, and sometimes these what do we call them as this prosthetics. Okay, these prosthetics also, yes, because they are completely inserted into the body and they stay in the body for a longer period of time. These implants, especially which kind of implants, like long-term implants, like the long-term use medical devices, they are classified under, most of them, not all of them, most of them, this prosthetic limbs, etc. they can be classified under high risk medical devices. Okay, so this is about the risk based classification according to rule 4 of medical devices. Rule 4 of medical devices deals with the risk based classification of medical devices. They are classified into class A, B, C and D. Okay, so the further detailing, like what are the special features of A and B? So what, just now we have discussed that the manufacturing and the licensing procedures and the various procedures for various, the further whatever are the rules are included in 2017 are different for A, B, C and D. We have seen that, just now we have discussed. Okay, all these we will see in our upcoming sessions. Please do not forget to follow us regularly. Okay, so and coming back to rule 4 subclause 2, the rule 4 subclause 2, just now what all we have discussed about the medical devices comes under rule 4.1. What all we have discussed was under rule 4.1, and that rule 4.1 deals with was about the risk classification of medical devices other than IVDs, other than in vitro diagnostic medical devices. Okay, and this rule 4 clause 2 is about the classification of is about risk-based classification for in vitro diagnostic medical devices. Okay, classification of IVDs, the risk-based classification of IVDs again. Okay, the previous one was other than MDs, other than IVDs, and this is about the IVDs. Okay, so the risk-based classification of IVDs, what is it based on again? Okay, what is the basis for the risk-based classification of IVDs? Okay, it is again based on the parameters specified in part 2 of the first schedule. Very important. The classification, please remember, the risk-based classification of IVDs is based on, the risk-based classification of IVDs is based on the part 1 of first schedule, part 2 of first schedule, part 1 of second schedule, part 2 of second schedule. Sometimes questions like this. Okay, this risk-based classification of IVDs especially, it is based on the part 2 of the first schedule. Part 2 of the first schedule. Okay, the principles are almost similar. The principles are almost similar, not very similar. There are certain exceptions that we will discuss in the upcoming parts. Okay, what are the exceptions? We will discuss in the upcoming parts. What are the exceptions of these IVDs to that of the classification of IVDs to that of the regular medical devices will be discussed in our upcoming sessions. Okay, and so the classification is one and the same again. Okay, please remember the classification is one and the same. The classification, again, the risk-based classification is one and the same. They are also classified as classes A, B, C and D. Same, they are also classified as, the classification is same. The basis of classification is also almost same except for certain exceptions. Except for certain exceptions, the exceptions will be discussed. Please do follow us regularly. Okay, so the same is the same classification is also followed here. A is nothing but the low risk, B low to moderate risk, C is moderate to high risk and D will be the very high risk. Okay. Okay, so this is about the subclause 2 of rule 4 and coming to the central licensing authority. So how is this classification based on? Okay, so what is the classification based on? Who does this classification? The classification is done by this risk-based classification, taking into consideration of all the bases and taking into consideration of all the principles. This classification is again given by the, so anyone can give the classification? No. The classification is again given by the central licensing authority. Okay, based on whatever have been mentioned in rule 2. Based on the whatever have been mentioned in rule 2. This rule 2 again comes in chapter 1. Okay, rule 2 is not subclause 2 of 4. Not the subclause 2 of 4. The rule 2 is again comes in chapter 1. Okay, what all are covered in rule 2? The inclusions and the exclusions, the applications. What is rule 2 about? Rule 2 of MDR 2017 is about the applications of MDR 2017. Applications of MDR 2017. It is again based upon the applications of MDR 2017. Okay, so what all are the applications of MDR 2017 and all have been discussed in rule 2 earlier. Okay, please go through that video. Again, we are not going to discuss it in detail right now. Okay, and it is based upon this intended use and the other parameters which are specified just now. Okay, so this licensing is usually done by the central licensing authority. Next the rule 4. Okay, again subclause 4 of rule 4. It is based on the classification on the basis of this. So whatever, whether we have taken or whether what all are taken into consideration, based on that the classification is done by the central licensing authority and it is published on the website of the CDSCO. Okay, so it is classified by the central licensing authority and it is published on the website of the CDSCO. Okay, it is published on the website, and but there is every right to this CDSCO. This CDSCO can do anything. Okay, it has every right and every authority to make additions or deletions in the list. Okay, it has every authority to make the additions and deletions of the list of such medical devices. It has every authority to make changes or additions or deletions or any modifications of the class of device. Sometimes what happens, a particular type of device, like take something like a very crucial implant or an IUD or something like a pacemaker or whatever it is. The risk classification of the device can be changed from C to D or D to C or A to B or B to C can be modified. Okay, this can be modified by so the CDSCO has every authority to modify the risk classification from time to time. So this authority of the central licensing authority is again mentioned in the subclause 4 of rule 4. Okay, and what about rule 5? So this completes rule 4 of chapter 2, rule 4 of MDR 2017. And what about rule 5? So rule 5, it is mentioning that it is about the medical device grouping. Okay, the grouping of the medical device. How is grouping? So yesterday's session, in our previous session, we have discussed about the medical device grouping, how the grouping of medical devices is usually made. Okay, and rule 5, it mentions about the importance of medical device grouping in MDR 2017. So it is about the importance or the prioritization of this grouping of medical device grouping in this MDR 2017. Okay, so medical device grouping, how is it important in MDR 2017, yes. So whoever, any person or any company or organization, whoever wishes for the license, whoever applies for the grant of license, whoever applies for the grant of license for medical devices, whenever some person is applying for the grant of, so this grouping, how it is important? It is important because any person or a firm or an organization, if they want to go for application for the grant of license for either the import or manufacture or sale or distribution or stock or exhibit this offer for sale of this medical devices, okay, or anything of the medical related to the medical devices, okay, what they need to do, okay, how this should be made, what is the relation between a medical device grouping and this grant of license? Yes, there is a lot of connection and lot of relation between a medical device grouping and the grouping of the medical device and the grant of license and the application for the grant of license. Okay, so what they need to do, what a person need to do is mentioned in this rule 5. Okay, they need to group the medical devices. So how grouping is done? Yeah, please follow my previous session. It is mentioned clearly about the grouping. Okay, so how these medical devices are grouped? Okay, based on this type of grouping, based on the category of grouping, so in accordance to with these guidelines only, according to the guidelines of grouping only and taking into consideration of the technological changes, this application for the grant of license will be made. Okay, so the application for the grant of license, application for the grant of license is made in accordance with the guidelines, of the medical device grouping. Based on this medical device grouping only, first the manufacturer or whoever is interested in import, sale or distribution, whoever it might be, whoever wishes to have a license, whatever the type of license may be, first they need to group the medical device. Okay, so whether it can be grouped or not, whether they have to first sit on that. Okay, they have to work on that. So and then group it accordingly, and then according to the guidelines of the grouping, then go for the grant of license. So this is the importance of this medical device grouping. That is nothing but rule 5. Yeah, we will once again we will see what is medical device grouping and what is its importance in MDR 2017. Again, okay. I think I had to change my pen color. Okay, for it to be more visible. Yes. So this 2017 it is based on MDR 2017 it deals with the risk-based classification. This document, especially this documentation, whatever the licensing needs, whether it may be a manufacturer license or a sale license or import license or a loan license. Okay, whatever it might be, it requires the documentation, the fee. Submission of the documentation, registration, approval, okay, the manufacturing, whether it is a sale or whether it is a distribution, whether it is an import, okay, whatever it is dependent on these factors. Okay, and these factors are again dependent, they are dependent upon the grouping regulations. So taking into consideration of all these, the devices are grouped actually. Okay, the devices can be grouped as give me a moment. Okay, they can be grouped as whether it is a single. Okay, it is grouped as, if it is group, there are different factors for the group. Okay, the factors are whether it is a family or a system or a group. Okay, the categories are, in the medical device grouping, the categories are family, system and group. We will see the examples. And sometimes there are certain medical devices which cannot be grouped. Okay, which cannot be grouped or which do not fall under any subset of this grouping. Okay, such type of devices are known as single devices. Okay, such type of devices, categories are known as single medical devices. Okay, so and the others are this family, system, grouping, etc. Okay, so what all come under family? Okay, we have discussed this because the family is nothing but if the devices belong to the same license holder. Okay, if the devices belong to same license holder, same risk classification system, that means all the devices they fall under class A, all the devices which are falling under class B or whatever it is, and whether it is a manufacturing process or something. Okay, and the system is nothing but which includes certain devices. Okay, when it comes under system, it is nothing but, yes, they come under a same license holder. Okay, they come under the same license holder, but not of a, it is of a same license holder, but not of a same risk classification system. The risk classification is not same, system is not same. Only the license holder is same and the intended use will be same. The purpose of use will be same. Okay, so the devices like hemodialysis machines and the orthopedic implants, they come under this category actually. Okay, they have the same license holder, same purpose. Okay, and the same proprietary name, but the risk classification system and the manufacturing process may not be same. Okay, such type of devices are grouped under a system. Okay, and what all comes under a group in the medical device grouping? What all devices can be classified as a group? Yes, the two or more devices. Yes, clearly we have discussed the two or more devices which can be supplied under a single package. The two or more devices which can be supplied under a single package by a license holder. Okay, the devices may have a separate brand name. Please remember, even though the license holder is one and the same, they may have a separate brand name. Okay, separate brand name. Okay, so this is about the grouping. This is about the group category of the medical devices grouping, and also there are certain devices that are single. The devices that are single, I just told you, which do not fall under any of these groups. Okay, it is not a family, it is not a system. Okay, thus medical devices which can be manufactured or sold or imported or distributed only alone, not to be grouped under any category. Okay, then there are also these IVD test kits again. See, please remember, in vitro diagnostics we were discussing in the starting of the session, we were discussing that MDs and IVDs, though IVDs are a part of MD, okay, though in vitro diagnostic devices are a part of MD, not always the provisions of the MDs apply, not every application of MDs are equal to that of this medical IVDs. Okay, and the provisions of MDs and IVDs are slightly different. Okay, wherever they are different, yes, we will definitely mention, yes, they are different in this medical device grouping. In the medical device grouping, yes, the provisions for IVDs and MDs are different. Okay, IVD test kit, they have a single application fees. If the IVD test kit is from a same license holder, they will have a single application fee and purpose. So it can be grouped under test kit. You are not calling it IVD medical device. We can call it an IVD test kit, complete kit. Okay. And the analyzers and devices included for testing are not included. The analyzers and the devices. So separate articles can be supplied for the kit also, and also the IVD cluster. Very, very important. IVD cluster is nothing but it consists of multiple kits. Okay, it consists of multiple in vitro diagnostic reagents. Cluster is nothing but which consists of more than one or more than two or three. It consists of multiple IVD reagents. Okay, so this is especially IVD cluster is nothing but the clusters or the test kits which are used for the infectious agent detections. Okay, especially like a malaria test kit or a typhoid test kit. Okay, such kind of test kits, test clusters we can call them. We do not call them kits. The infectious diseases clusters. Okay, they involve so many components. They all are medical devices, but they involve so many components. They are considered under IVD clusters. And each product, please remember, each product fee is separate. In IVD clusters, each product fee is separate. Okay, whereas in the case of MDs, that is when they are grouped under medical devices which are grouped under family, the medical devices which are grouped under group. Okay, for this the application fee is same. Each has a single application fee for that group. But coming to the IVD cluster, for each product the fee is separate. Okay, these are the certain differences. So what is the importance of medical grouping? Yes, this is the importance of medical device grouping. The documentation and the fee and their approval details, they are again independent. They are different. Okay. Yeah. Yes, moving forward to the essential principles for the manufacturing. Rule 6 is nothing but the essential Essential principles in manufacturing the medical devices. What are the essential principles in the manufacture of the medical devices? Okay, so we all know very well because even everything, whether it may be a new drug molecule or a new medical device or whatever it is concerned with the medical and healthcare provisions, yes, it has to follow certain stringent essential principles for its performance. Okay, so for the establishment of safety, efficacy and performance of a medical devices, the manufacturer has to follow certain very essential principles for the safety and performance. Okay, so what all have to be considered, that the contemporary scientific knowledge and the updated technologies and the updating technologies day to day, time to time, whatever the scientific knowledge and the technologies are being updated has to be applied to the essential principles in the manufacture of medical devices by the manufacturer. Okay, that has to be, so whatever, so this is the most so now we are dealing with the AI and machine learning, like, right, artificial intelligence and the machine learning. So if the manufacturer may feel that yes, this is very contemporary, some technology may seem to be very much contemporary and which may be very advanced technologies, but if it does not come into the conformity of the regulations, yes, that is not permitted. It does not come into the conformity of the regulations of the act, yes, that is not considered. Okay, even that has to be taken into consideration during the manufacturing procedures. Yes, and the Rule 7 of Chapter 2 deals with the product standards for medical devices. Very, very important. How do we establish these product standards for these medical devices? Okay, how do this CDSCO or whatever may be the licensing authority or whatever may be any manufacturer, whoever is establishing the standards, okay, whoever might be establishing the standards, whoever may be the authority to establish the standards, on what basis, how these product standards are established for medical devices is described in rule number 7. Okay, so we have 3 subclauses in rule 7. Rule 7 has 3 subclauses, and how the standards are defined, yes, we will see. The standards usually for these products, okay, for medical devices especially, the product standards given by central licensing authority are based on, okay, the standards are usually based on the BIS standards. Okay, the standards are usually related to or taken from the Bureau of Indian Standards, the standards that are provided by the Bureau of Indian Standards 1985, which are under the Bureau of BIS. So we all know there is a certification mark like BIS certification mark. It is like a hallmark. Okay, hallmark certification by the BIS. We all know about most of the products. Yes, even medical devices, even if it is a medical device and the licensing or the standards are given by CDSCO, okay, primarily they are confined or they need to conform to the standards given by the Bureau of Indian Standards Act 1985. Out of these medical devices, the standards for medical devices, they fall under section 63 of this 1985, section 63 of 1985, Bureau of Indian Standards, BIS Act 1985, section 63 deals with the standards for medical devices. Okay, and okay, so the primarily to be followed standards are about the Bureau of Indian Standards, and when there is no relevant standard, okay, so there are certain exceptions, right? Wherever we are going, whatever we are dealing with, definitely it has certain exceptions will be there. Right? So coming to the exceptions in Rule 2, in Rule 7, subclause 2 of Rule 7, there are certain exceptions. When there is no relevant standard under BIS for this particular medical device, see, there is a medical device that has to be licensed and for that a standard has to be established. Okay, and there are no relevant standards in this Rule 1 according to BIS. There are no relevant standards for a particular medical device. Then what happens? Then the standards will be laid down by then the standards will be considered then the standards will be laid down by the International Organization for Standardization, that is ISO. The primary concern is BIS. Okay, then if device does not fall under BIS, if the device does not fall under the BIS standards, then we have to go for the ISO standards. Then go for ISO standards. Then the subsequent authority has to go for the ISO standards. Okay, the standards given by the ISO are the International Electrotechnical Commission (IEC). Then go for the second preference is the ISO or IEC. The second preference will be ISO or IEC is the second preference. This is the first preference. The first preference will be the BIS and second preference will be the ISO or IEC standards. Okay. So when these are not relevantly available, come on, provide it. Next. So if the standards, if there is any particular medical device still not complying with the BIS standards and it is not also falling under the ISO or IEC standards, then what we need to do? What does the licensing authority do? Or how the product standards are established? Yes, then the product standards will conform to the validated manufacturer standards. Okay, then the product standards can be established according to the manufacturer's established, whatever the standards that manufacturer is establishing, okay, has taken into consideration. Yes, they will be considered as validated standards according to the subclause 3 of Rule 7. Okay, so this is how the product standards are established for medical devices. Usually the product standards of medical devices are usually provided by the provided according to the standards given by the BIS in the second priority. If there is not, if BIS does not satisfy, then we are going for ISO or IEC. And then if both are not satisfying, then we go for the manufacturer's regular standards or the manufacturer's repeated or the established standards of the manufacturer. Okay, so yes, so this was about chapter 2 of MDR 2017. Chapter 2 of MDR 2017 usually covers rules 4 to 7. The rule 4 discussing about the, yes, once a quick glance, the rule 4 which discusses about the classification system, especially the risk-based classification system of medical devices. Rule 5 about the medical device grouping. 6 about this manufacturing principles, okay, essential principles for manufacturing of medical devices, and Rule 7 about the product standards of medical devices. Okay, so this is about what all is considered under the chapter 2 of MDR 2017. Okay, moving forward, we will study more interesting concerns, more important and interesting topics or interesting aspects of MDR 2017, mostly examination point of view. So here, please don't consider it like it is not, so it is short or it is in brief or something. Yes, definitely. Now we need to go according to the examination concerns. All our sessions, whether it is in brief or whether it is in detail, is again in consideration with the examination pattern or in consideration with the examination approaches. Okay, so to learn more from us, coming back to my regular declaration. So if you want to learn more from us regarding MDR, not only regarding MDR 2017, but also about the current affairs, general science, and whatever the complete syllabus of this UPSC Drugs Inspector Medical Devices syllabus, the complete syllabus of medical devices. Yes, we are covering everything under our regular course. What we are offering, we are offering a crash course for this UPSC Medical Devices examination, and for whoever wish to join with us for more detailed insights, yes, you are most welcome, and you can contact us on these numbers, on the numbers mentioned here, displayed now on the screen, and now also these numbers and these contact details and every information of our academy, our institution is mentioned in the description box. Please go through the description box and please get back to us at the earliest for your more insightful and rapid preparation, rapid crash course preparations. Okay, before that, before leaving, please do not forget to like, share, subscribe and comment us.